Hello, thanks for tuning in. A reason to celebrate. I learned how to control exposure on my cam. At last, I've got the lighting correct. After 2 years. Oh dear. Okay. Let's hope things get better on my channel. So, 17th of March 2024, there was an interesting call. Angel called in from Ireland, spoke to Matt Dillahunty and Jimmy Snow. There was no hang-up, there were no bad tempers, a lot of very interesting issues were raised. I'm going to focus on a couple of them. So Angel basically called in to say that she's like a progressive Christian. She accepts homosexuality, LGBTQ, etc., but she acknowledges that the congregation that she's in doesn't. However, she wants to stay faithful to her faith, and she was phoning in to ask, in view of this situation that she's got, where she's kind of out of line with the theology and the practices of her congregation. How could she do that? And I think it was Jimmy who answered and said, well, bear in mind, you've called an atheist show. So what we will say to you is there's no need to stay faithful to your faith. You can detach from your faith. You can critically think and analyze the evidence and understand there's no good reason to accept any of the core propositions, that there's a God and that there was a resurrection, that Jesus was divine and could do miracles, etc., etc. So she took that point in good spirit and kind of moved on. And then she asked what I think is quite an interesting question. So let's have a listen to it.
To interrupt, but can I ask you guys a hypothetical?
Sure.
So let's just say hypothetically, 24 hours, all the religions in the world became extremely left-leaning, right? But like they still kept all their stories, but like no bigotry, etc. But they just kept all their lore. Would you guys still be opposed to religion, and why?
The channel would not go anywhere. We would do the Sunday show next Sunday. We would do it the Sunday after. We would do the Sunday after that. Skep Talk would still go. Every single program on this channel would still go on.
Yeah. And some of them are addressing, I mean, if you say, basically what you're saying is if all religions stopped being problematic, but tried to maintain their religious belief, then I'm still a skeptic. I still care about what's true. Would it be as big a deal? No. If we all got together and decided to build the future world of Star Trek, but hang on to people's cherished religious stories, it would be irritating, but I probably wouldn't spend as much time on it. But as long as people are making claims about what's real and failing to demonstrate them, I'm going to point that out. And I'll be open to discussing it with anybody who thinks it can prove otherwise, because I do this not to prove people wrong, or not merely to prove people wrong, but because if there is a God, I fucking want to know. Why wouldn't you want to know? This has got to be the most important issue possible. Is there an afterlife, and what do I have to do about it? Is there a God that's going to make some sort of judgment about it? There could be no questions about eternity could not possibly be less important or any more important than they are.
Yeah, obviously I agree with what Matt and Jimmy has both said. I think that if religion stopped becoming problematic, in other words, if Islam, it's incomprehensible, but if Islam stopped suppressing women, stopped with the Sharia law brutality, etc., etc., and if if all branches of Christianity withdrew their objections to things like abortion, LGBTQ, etc., then it would be less of a problem. Where I live in Britain, to be honest with you, that's not really too much of a problem. I've been into a congregation or two recently for various reasons, and I've found that there are some that hold those hardline views on LGBTQ. Certainly they are. Most of them seems to be fairly progressive. My biggest problem with religion in the UK is that they've got effectively charity status. They've got privileges on taxation, which I don't agree with, and that's my big problem with religion in Britain in a practical sense. But even if that stopped, and even if every Christian and Muslim suddenly became ultra progressive, my interest in religion is still, is it true? and that from the evidence or lack of evidence that I've seen so far, it's monumentally stupid to believe in any religion that I've ever encountered. And that's why I've got an interest in it, because to me, it's like believing in Santa Claus. I find it incredibly bizarre and amusing in a way, and at the same time interesting listening to people saying, you know, this is my book on Santa Claus and this is what I believe. I think it's it kind of it almost gets me out of bed in the morning. I find it so amusing. Not quite, but anyway, I've got a channel, and the reason for that is I'm interested in this subject. But yeah, I absolutely agree with everything that Matt said just there. So let's listen to a bit more.
Angela, oh, sorry.
I love the fact that we would all be on the same page on a number of issues, but yeah, it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next issue then. Okay, let's move on. Something more of interest here. Let's have a listen.
Maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you're not a skeptic. Maybe you're not. Well, I hope you at least aspire to skepticism if you're not. I'm hoping that it's your skepticism that's pulling you away from it.
Well, of course. I'm very open-minded. That's why I'm...
Okay, so Jimmy's saying that I hope that Angel aspires to skepticism. Probably not saying that Angel is a skeptic as such, because after all, she's saying things like she wants to stay faithful to her faith. That doesn't sound to me like a skeptic. I mean, I would think a skeptic would say, I want to test my faith against the evidence. And if the evidence doesn't stack up, then I've got no reason to be faithful. That's what a skeptic would say. So he's absolutely right in what he says. Anybody who's a Christian or a Muslim or who believes in any religion and claims to be a skeptic, as Matt said before, it's a breakdown in critical thinking. You can't be a skeptic and believe in religions that have got supernatural claims attached to them, because as far as we know so far, none of these have met their burden of proof. It's a failure in critical thinking, a failure in skepticism. And if you're failing in skepticism, you're not a skeptic. Okay, and then of course, Angel went on to say that she's open-minded, implying that skepticism and open-mindedness are necessarily similar in some way. Now, as you know, I'm a skeptic, or I hope that I'm a skeptic. I try to reduce to the absolute minimum the number of spurious beliefs. I try to eliminate any bad beliefs by testing them against the evidence. And I don't like to clutter up my mind with nonsense like ancient aliens, for example, or anything supernatural. Now, as I've said before on my channel, I've got a friend who's a conspiracy theorist, and he accused me of not being open-minded. And to me, what that means is, for him, being open-minded means accepting claims which haven't satisfied their burden of proof. So, for example, for him, it would be on flat Earth, moon conspiracy, chemtrails, etc., etc. I reject all these, and he accused me of not being open-minded. Well, actually, I took that as a compliment. All right, let's listen to a bit more.
I've been calling this show. And,
I don't know that I call open-minded and skepticism synonymous, but there's some differences. No, it's some people think open-minded means that you will entertain anything even well past when you have no reason to do so. So, for example,
that's very well articulated by Jimmy. And yeah, so let's move on to one more point. Okay, here's Angel again talking about a miracle that she witnessed in church.
I'm going to make this guy walk. And then the guy, he starts praying. And then the guy in the wheelchair, like, he gets up. And then everyone's like, oh my God, like, it's crazy. Like, he can walk and shit. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, like,
yeah.
Like, you for real?
Totally ignoring that the overwhelming majority of people who use wheelchairs do have some amount of mobility out.
Yeah, you can go online. You can find all these, I don't know, pastor makes paraplegic, well, I don't know. Pastor makes boy in wheelchair walk, or miracle cure in church, etc. Yeah, typically you see somebody in a wheelchair, you see the pastor put his head on somebody, make a sign of a cross, and then go, oh, and then this person gets up. And it's a miracle. Anybody who doesn't realize that's all stage managed must be incredibly gullible. But it keeps people believing. It keeps them faithful. Okay.
Outside that not all people who use wheelchairs are actually paralyzed from the waist down. Angel, so we may move on here, but I don't know, because you had said at the beginning that you want to keep your faith strong or something along those lines. So the two things I want to say is, one, somebody in live chat said, Flanders, can I vote for Maggie Simpson too? You can, but unfortunately it's Maggie Taylor Simpson. Should I have said Maggie Taylor Simpson? Would that have made more sense? Anyway, Angel, why is it that you want to keep your faith? Why do you want your faith to stay strong?
I think it's honestly just like it just makes me just like feel good. I'm gonna be so honest with you. It makes me feel good. It gives me a sense of comfort, and not only that, but I'm kind of like scared to know what it's like outside of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's almost like a drug addict that is scared that they're going to lose their supplier, or they're going to lose their supply of quality Class A drugs, shall we say, because it makes them feel so good, and they're afraid to lose that supply. I wonder if that is any kind of useful analogy. It seems to me like the situation she's in is that she realizes that her religion is not well evidenced, but she just wants to keep it because she's got this community. It makes her feel good, and it's a positive thing in her life, even though she hasn't got any good evidence to support the truth of it.
I very much know what you mean. Firsthand know what you mean. Because
last week's...
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Last week's show.
Because oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm just going to stop there because Matt's going to talk about the letter that he read out last week. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to end it there. Just one more thing to say, because they then go on to say that, I mean, Jimmy makes the point that, okay, if Nazism, if you were in a Nazi movement because it made you feel good, would you think that it's worth continuing to believe in that ideology in order to maintain those in the feel good factor? And she said, well, no, of course not. And okay, let's not equate Christianity with Nazism. But on the other hand, for example, I was at a social function over the weekend. It was full of Christians. It was a dance, kind of barn dance type thing. Musicians, the whole lot. Everybody was having an absolutely amazing time. There were Christian smiles everywhere. There was joy to be had all around. It was an absolutely amazing evening. And I was thinking for one moment, oh, to deprive all these people of, the joy that they're experiencing. They're all so happy. For goodness sake, just leave them alone in their beliefs. Leave them alone in their false beliefs, and just let them be happy. What's wrong with it? But then I started thinking, well, if a man and a woman at the break, at the interval, came up into the middle and they were announced, and these two are getting married, give them a big round of applause. I know there would be smiles everywhere. There would be cheers and, praise Jesus. These two are absolutely made for each other. It's going to be a fabulous wedding, a man and a woman. I know that would be the case, but I also know it would be the case that if two men or two women came up into that same space and said, for example, Josie and Susan are going to be married in 2 weeks, I don't think there would be quite the same atmosphere. I think that there would probably be a bit of a silence, and people would be looking nervously at each other. And that's the problem. That's the price of it. That's the price of all the smiles, the bigotry that comes with the religion. I'm not saying that, because as I've said, that there's more progressive Christianity now in Britain than there ever has been before, but there would be a significant percentage of the congregation who would not approve and would think that it's unholy and goes against their religion to feel good about a union between two people of the same sex. So that's the problem. That's the price of it. That's the price of all the smiles and all the happiness. It depends on judging other people. That's the issue. Okay, well, that's enough from me. I do recommend that you listen to the whole of that call. It was a very good call all the way through. I'll put a link below the video. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.